Today, we are starting to finally build out Shards. Shards is a CLI that will allow you to manage your agents and your work trees natively. It's right now a CLI tool. Here's a quick little demo. Please use Shards to open two new terminals with two test work trees in Ghostty with Claude Code. One open. We can see that they opened in with Claude Code launched inside of work trees with our shard tags. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's dig into it. So I go through my entire planning process and I go in depth of what I think about when I start developing a new product. We go over stuff like mission statement, vision statement, problem statements, and we work together with our agent to create steering documentation that we can use later on in our product development. Today, we are going to be planning out the project from scratch using probably mostly Kiro CLI, but we're also going to probably be using Claude Code, maybe a couple of other tools. I'm not sure yet, really. I'm going to take you through the Kiro standard way of doing like a planning flow inside of the Kiro CLI. Since we haven't really gone through the planning mode in Kiro yet, we will do that. And then we will, if we are happy with that result, we will keep it and we'll go from there. If we're not happy with that result, we will go through my usual planning flow with Claude Code. And let's see where we end up here. But yeah, I'm just going to start. And I think we just do /plan. And we are now inside of the planning mode. So now we can start talking to Kiro here and start planning our project. So I'm going to be using Whisperflow a lot here. So I'm just going to be talking to Kiro and recording my voice. I'm just going to start talking about the idea that I have for what I want to build. I want to build a tool called Shards. Basically, the vision of this tool is to make parallel AI development as fluid and as disposable as opening new browser tabs in a browser. So basically, we want to be able to open new instances of a coding agent in a single pane and be able to observe what is going on there. So the mission would be to eliminate the context switching and the friction that we would have of working on multiple projects, multiple terminals, multiple panes of our agents, basically, and making it simpler for us to multitask and giving us as developers really a centralized dashboard where we can spin up, dispose, control, observe our agents or our shards of agents. And we want to be able to dispatch them and switch between them like in a seamless way. And if we think about this from like a problem perspective, there are three main pain points here that I'm thinking of. One here is that to let AI fix a bug or work on a side issue or a background issue, we must first stash what we're going on in our main branch and jump out into a separate branch to work on that. We want to be able to do that asynchronously. Second, we imagine that we're running more agents in parallel. We would have that work going on in scattered terminals, or maybe one will be running in Cloud Web, one will be running in our terminal, another will be running in Cursor or whatever. And we want to be able to manage that from one interface. And we want to be able to also have those run in isolation. So in our case, it will be work trees. And also then the context switching thing, like jumping between these terminals so that you work on 5 different issues in 5 different terminals in 5 different work trees already. There is an issue of managing all of that. What is going on? Does an agent need input from any of those terminals? Which ones are active? Which ones are not active? Is there a PR I need to check in either of them, and so on? Let's just send this off and see what comes back. Let's just answer these questions here. Yes, exclusively CLI-based agents. So think Kiro CLI, think Claude Code CLI, Gemini CLI, and Codex CLI will probably be the main ones. We're not worrying at all about web-based agents, and we do not want a web interface. We want a native interface. We're going to be building this with Rust CLI-first, but we are going to build like a GPI and have like this PTY processes and terminals running as well. So it's going to be a fully native Rust project. We're not building anything web-based, no APIs, nothing like that. I don't know if there has been some issues going on with the camera here in the recording. I apologize for that, but yeah, we're going to just continue here. And I hope that the camera issues are now fixed. Where was I? CLI based. How do you envision the isolation mechanism working? We're gonna answer that. So the core primitive here is going to be the source of truth here. We're going to use work trees. We might do something with containers in the future, but we're using work trees is the isolation at the moment, and the process isolation as well. So separate working directories with process management. It's a CLI-first, probably going to be an SDK as well, but we are going to build a native GUI with GPUI as well, but that's like down the line. Don't worry about that too much right now. Give it this like problem solution statements here a little bit as well. So when you run multiple AI agents, say Claude Code or Gemini CLI on different tasks, you will end up with a lot of scattered terminals and you will have no overview of what's going on. So you have to like remember everything that you have spun up in your work trees and in your different terminal windows. And you can't easily let an agent work in the background while you do something else because they all like fight over your working directory unless you have split them up on different work trees. And the solution I'm proposing here is this shards, and each shard is a Git work tree, a dedicated PTY process with metadata about what tasks the agent is working on, and a Rust daemon, or not really a daemon, but we have Rust working on these headless processes, so they survive when the terminal closes. It gives you this tab-like structure where you can instantly switch between these agents and see their status at just glancing at the UI, where you will have a list of everything that's running on the left side, and you can jump into a session in your main window if you want to. So the roadmap that I would see here is basically CLI that can spawn and attach to background agents with good structured logging, and we want to parse PTY output for events using portable PTY, and then we want to build a native GUI last. But we really want to focus on the CLI here first. Okay, so I think that now this should be like, we have given it a lot of information here. I hope that it's not too much and that it gets confused. I don't know how clear I was rambling a bit, but I think I got my main points across already, but I see that it's asking me, so you see here, how should Shards handle the life cycle of AI agent processes? I don't quite understand the first question here. We want to keep it simple. The CLIs can be started inside or outside of our Shards application. So it's not like we need to be able to attach things that run outside of our application, even though that might be a nice to have feature later on. But I mean, we don't really have control over pausing and resuming, which is fine because we kind of just kick, like, you can imagine it almost like this, that all we really do is write a CLI command that opens our terminal, like the terminal that we will build in the GUI eventually. And that in that terminal is where we engage with the agent. But in the CLI, how we kind of start is that we write something like start repo name. We have a start command essentially. And that start command just opens up our native terminal, launches the agent inside of the new work tree, inside of the correct directory. So say that even the shards directory itself with this, we would say start shards for the name of the starting command, like start shards, can be whatever. And then it will be basically the name of the repo. So in this case, maybe we give it the path to the repo, and then we say Claude Code Ghostty, for example, and it will launch Claude Code inside of our Ghostty terminal, inside of the new work tree that we created on the right branch, and it will open that terminal window for us, like natively, like not inside of our application, but like just open Ghostty for me. I think it should work. And yeah, I think that the branching here should be automatic. Shards should be managing this. So yeah, we basically give it the command. So you can imagine that the CLI is built for agents. So the user will be talking to Claude Code in a terminal, and they will say to Claude to start a new work tree using shards for feature X. Then Claude Code will be writing the bash command to start up a new work tree in shards. So it's built for agents in the CLI terms. And the third question, how should the CLI handle agent command specification? Yeah, config file I like, and optional. I like both here. So we could have a config file for the defaults, but you override them with the command. You want a simple start command that creates a work tree, launches an agent in a native terminal, lets the agent work independently. The CLI is designed to be agent friendly for programmatic use. Exactly. One final set of questions. What should be the work tree naming and branch strategy? I think that we should have, imagine here that we are doing, like the agent will write, so the user will have a request to the Claude Code agent that they are working with. And they will say, create a new work tree using shards for feature X. And then we can basically do shard with so all of the branches that are created by shards can have shard as the prefix, and then maybe some type of ID like a hash or something. I don't know. What do you think is a good approach? Because I don't know here, but I think that it's good that it shows the branch is coming from shard. But then the agent and the user, imagine the agent being the user, will name the branch itself. So how should track and display active sessions? I'm not sure about this yet either. I mean, when we build a GUI, we will focus a lot more on this tracking and active sessions. Right now, what is important is that we want to be able to track how many shards we have active. We want to be able to see if there is a terminal window open in our system or inside of that work tree. So basically, is there an agent running inside of the work tree? And we want to like track when things are closing. And we can maybe do that even through, yeah, I don't even know, but we can probably use Git a lot here. Like a lot of things are built into Git already. So you probably know better than me what we can use from Git natively to track this. But yeah, I think a simple registry is fine to begin with. Yeah, I think the two parameter approach is good, but it can be more parameters here. Like all the options can be a parameter that can be added as we add more features. Okay, these are exactly the crates that I would use. So portable PTY, I mentioned a few times, Git2, clap, terminal launch open. I don't know about the other ones. Build a minimal CLI that creates Git worktree, launches agents in native terminals, and maintains a simple registry for session tracking. The architecture uses Git as the source of truth with automatic branch naming and process lifecycle management. Here's the tasks. Yeah, I mean, this looks fine. It's a very simple so far. I think this plan looks great. Plan has been approved, and now I'm going to switch into execution mode. Let's start implementation. Okay, so it goes straight into implementation here. What I would have liked to do here right now is actually I would have liked it to write a document for me with the plan. Maybe it did. Product, no. Structure, no. Tech, no. It didn't create any documentation, but it's starting to write a lot of things. But I would have really wanted it to write down into files, like at least one file, like a PRD or something like that, like a plan file, because I don't know how much context we have left. We used probably quite a lot of context in that discussion we had with the agent. And I like to have this kind of like overview document of what the planning that we did. That's what the steering is for too, I guess. A few things that we are going to look into creating. We have some templates here for product structure and tech. So we can, with this discussion that we have right now going on, we can probably just fill that out as soon as it's done. With this implementation, it's a very small thing it's doing right now, so it should be fine. And then we can also go into creating like a small agents.md and stuff like that as well. But I'm just going to let it rip here a little bit. Okay, there we go. I don't know what's happening. It's jumping around. At least we can see what's going on here. CLI, custom agents, we've done. Steering is what I want to see. So what is steering? So these are the things that we have there that are not filled. Okay, so here is agents.md. That we want. So we can put our standards in there. Fine. We can start with just an agents.md. We don't need like any complicated steering documents there, I think. We can see here as well that the agent is gonna like just rip in. It's launching a bunch of terminals for me. Like you can see here, like I have a few of these open. You can see that it's like trying some commands and stuff. it has now also launched a terminal window for me where it also launched the Kiro agent, which is cool. I'm gonna terminate. Okay, it's finishing up. We can see that it's all systems working. It's starting just the native terminal. Okay, sounds great. So now we can see it actually wrote into the steering documents. Okay, cool. And we can see here that it has written those, product, structure. Okay, I'm just gonna ask it to fill that as well. I can see that you filled out the steering documentation, but you missed the structure.md. Can you please also read structure.md, understand the template, and then also fill that out? Product, purpose. Okay, that's good enough. Here we have the registry. I just want to see here. Yeah, so here we should be able to configure which terminal it uses. I'm just going to check this structure. Okay, great. I think that what I can see so far, like Kiro is pretty good at creating this type of documentation for us. I would have created very similar things to this in my claude.md or agents.md file if it hadn't. I'm not going to go into any custom agents.md just yet. We'll dig into that when we start running into issues. So what I'll do next is we have this @commit command that we can do. We're just going to push it. I know that I haven't tested anything yet or anything like that, but we're very early on in the project, so it doesn't matter. No, we don't have users. We're not afraid of breaking anything. Push domain. It says push domain. I think it will understand what I mean. Yeah. What we really want to do now is we just want to ask Kiro here. Could you please explain to me all of the features that we have implemented right now and what our CLI tool currently can and cannot do? Okay, can you please save that as inside of steering? Just create a progress.md document where you can save this as a markdown file. So this is not something I usually do, but I just want to have that saved so that we know where we are. This is not my normal planning process, but since we are trying out Kiro here, we want to use that. We can close that. Okay, great. So now there's one more document I would want to create here, and we can call it AI instruction.md. And what that document really should do, and it should also be kept up to date. So I want to say, think about this in a meta way. If you were to explain to an engineer or to an AI agent how to use our CLI, this should be a very concise document explaining the use cases for the CLI and when and how to use it. So you can imagine that this, what we're creating right now, is just skill.md or a power.md for when we want to turn this into a skill later on. So I just want to keep that from the get-go. And once we have done that, we have the progress. We can use this later on to kind of read and see what we want to create next. I have a pretty good idea in my mind of like where I want to take this as well, but it's good to kind of keep that instruction. Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Can you please commit and push those two new files to main as well? What I would like to do now is just take a moment to think about the configs here. So like, how can I now configure this? Because I see right now that when I run the commands and so on, that it opens it in the like Mac native terminal, but I'm using Ghostty. Ghostty is my go-to terminal. That's where I do my work. How can I configure which terminal the CLI uses by default? And how can I configure which shell it uses, if that's also configurable? And how can I control also which coding agent is launched? Okay, so we don't have, I like the idea of agent profiles, and I want to have a default config as well. Command line arguments override for sure. We don't want environment variables for this. We rather would want like a config file, like a toml or a YAML file or something. And we can add the config command, and we want to have this like .shards. So we want to have a global command or a global config that is overridden by a repo specific config that is also overridden by the CLI arguments. So that's the hierarchy. CLI arguments kind of like overrides if it's used. Otherwise, it goes to the defaults that are in the repo root, in the .shards, or it goes to the global config, which is globally configured in the application or configured by the user in their user root. I actually don't know. Can you test the Ghostty command yourself and check it? Because I don't know. I would have to test it manually. I prefer if you test it. If no agent is specified and no default is configured, should we prompt the user to choose? Yeah, let's prompt the user to choose. That sounds like a good plan, like an onboarding kind of thing. Yeah, so let's create the .shards folder where we have a config.toml in the project root and the config.toml alongside work trees in the user root. Both should be supported. Or yeah, no, let's not do. Okay, no, I misunderstood first the config file location. I think we could support both. Why not? I know that it is supported. So I'm a little bit afraid about the context window here. We have been going quite a long time. Should have cleared context in between and kind of reprimed, but let's continue and see. So one reason here as well why I haven't like really verified manually and stuff, I haven't code reviewed anything yet either. One main reason why I haven't done that yet is just because we're so early on, and as you can see, the agent is kind of like self-testing and self-validating. So one of the cool things here about building a CLI as well is very easy to build an agent loop. So the agent can run all the commands itself and check what is working and what is not working. So it's basically self-testing as we go along, and that is what makes this very powerful here. Okay, interesting. Things are getting quite complex. Let me implement this step by step, starting with the basic version that works. Then we can extend it. Let me focus on core functionality first and implement the configuration system in a simpler way. Yeah, keep it simple for sure. We don't need any complex merging logic. If that was implied with what I said before, we can take it out fully. But it should work with Ghostty, and we can like skip the config management commands if that is what is complicating it. Explain to me what is complicating it and keep it simple. So something I like to do here as well, to quickly get an understanding of the issue, I have the agent explain back to me so that we can see, yeah, simplify this dramatically because it's removing a lot of code. Yeah, so it's over engineering quite a bit. So one thing that I like to do that when it keeps doing this is write a little bit of an agents.md here. Keep it simple. So not over engineer. We don't have users yet. This is POC. Still keep core code and principles tested. So we want to, even though it is early days, of course, we want to still keep code tested. We want to also follow just Yagni. Don't need to explain that. Justify every line of code. Keep in mind that we are early on in development and we don't have any users yet. So don't be afraid breaking things. We also don't need complicated backwards ability. This is a good start for agents.md. Let's see what our agent is doing. No, it's not working. So I can see that you're trying to launch terminals, but we're getting a bunch of errors whenever you launched the terminals. Okay, we can do this. I'm just gonna go into my, because I have a skill already that does this. Claude skills, scripts, launch agent. That's not what I want to do. This seems to be hanging. Let's give it a second. And I wonder if we can resume. Please read the core files in steering and in the source directory. We are having some issues launching the terminals, especially the Ghostty terminal. And yeah, just get yourself a deep understanding of how this app works and what it's supposed to be doing. So basically, I'm just priming to get started again. You can test it yourself, like you're capable of running the CLI commands yourself. I cannot see the terminal launched on my system. There we go. So it seemed to work once. I'm gonna copy this. One thing that I don't like here is that it like jumps straight into developing. I would want to discuss the issue a bit more with it. It's rolled back to the terminal app now, which seems to work. Can you stop? Like, how can I stop this? I can't escape. I'm just gonna Google here quickly. Stop. Nothing obvious. Okay. So it's kind of looping back to the original issue. It's still not working. So here is some issues that came up. Also, I already have this working as a shell command. So here is the shell command that is working. So just to give you an example of how I solved it. So since I've done this here, right, as a skill, here is the shell commands that I've been using for that. Yes, it's not working. I'm still getting this Terminal app seems to work perfectly, but with Ghostty, I'm still getting this. And this works, like in our terminal app. Ghostty seems to launch now, but it's not launching the agent. I'd really like this to work for Ghostty. Why didn't it work? Can we try using Claude Code? So the launch command for Claude Code is just Claude in the CLI. Okay. But it's not the best solution. Can you try with the alias I have for Claude Code, just CC? Okay, let's leave it there for now. What I want now is just to check here. Can you please explain to me why it wasn't working with Ghostty in the same way? And what was the difference? What is the difference with our solution and the shell solution? Okay, that's fine for now. Okay, great. Can you please commit and push all changes we have locally? We probably have quite a lot of test shards open. Okay, great. Can you please also now clean up all of the test work trees we might have from this testing? Okay, so those didn't get added. I wonder if I'm just gonna do MD file updates, commit, yes, sync. Okay, great. Can you write me like a manual testing guide for how I can test all of the current functionality that we have? Something that I would like to be able to do here that I cannot do all the time. I do in Claude Code is like queue up a new message. Here I now would have wanted to say save it to a markdown file and just send it. So it seems, see, I can't write as it's syncing, which is a bit unfortunate. Okay, great. Can you please create the config file for us with default config as well in the .shards inside of this repo? So we have spent an hour today here already. Time kind of flies when you do these things. I'm gonna run through this testing guide here off camera. If you want to do it yourself, you can clone this down and you can run these tests. We're just gonna add to devlog here as well. So let's answer these questions. Today we worked on building the POC for the Shards terminal CLI interface. We are now able to launch terminals inside of worktree. So we're able to, through a CLI command, just launch a new worktree and launch our agent directly inside of that worktree. We spent an hour. We spent most of that time planning or trying the planning flow native to Kiro. The main accomplishments was that we were able to get the POC to work. It's not very robust just yet, but it's just very simply a POC that's working. We also managed to get the Ghostty terminal to work, even though that was a workaround. I liked the kind of interactiveness of the planning flow, but I still feel like it left a lot of things open, or at least it didn't show me what it was thinking before it started executing. So I'm not sure yet if I like the architectural direction and the direction that we went with this app, so I need to dig into that more tomorrow. We made a lot of decisions on what we're going to build, how to build it, the architectural decisions and so on, but we are going to confirm them tomorrow. So I'm not going to specify the decisions made just yet. And for tomorrow is really digging into what we did today, verifying what we did today, and start like building out the core functionalities of the CLI so that we can start creating it and building it into a Claude Code skill, like hero power, and different kinds of ways how we can allow AI agents to use the CLI. Okay, and that's it. We'll dig into more validation stuff tomorrow, start writing some tests, make sure that the architecture is actually fitting to what we envision for the future. So we'll dig in a lot more to details tomorrow. And yeah, right now we have the kind of like basic proof of concept kind of working. We have a couple of workarounds, for example, how to launch Claude Code in the Ghostty terminal, which seems to be quite a workaround at the moment. But yeah, we'll see. We have a config file here. We can configure these things here. And yeah, let's dig into it more tomorrow. And thank you for coming along.